Live, Prado, live. Live, Prado, live, Prado, live, Prado, live.
Live, Prado, live, Prado, live, Prado, live.
Yo, live, Prado, live, Prado, live, Prado, live.
Live, Prado, live, Prado, live, Prado, live.
Everybody, sound off,
sound off.
In the front, sounding weak,
sounding weak.
In the middle, sounding weak,
sounding weak.
In the rear, tighten it up, If you stop, you're gonna drop, Can't stop, running, PT, so good, all the way, all the way. Live, Prado, live, Prado, live, Prado, live.
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 Motivated, dedicated, number one, from the sun, super duper, paratrooper, everybody, clap your hands, sound off, sound off, 1, 2, 3, 4, hey,
1, 2, 3, 4, hey.
Run, we gonna run all the way, hey.
Run, we gonna run all the way, hey.
Early this morning, about 2:45.
Early this morning, about 2:45.
My branch chief was drinking tea.
My friend Sleep was drinking tea.
He had black hats standing all around his desk.
Black cat standing all around his desk.
He had 12 green hats in the leaning rest.
12 green hats in the leaning rest.
He said, bring smoke today, everybody.
Bring smoke today, everybody.
Bring smoke on Joe, everybody.
Bring smoke on Joe, everybody.
Left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, hill.
Left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, hill.
Your left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, hill.
Your left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, hill.
Fired up,
Fired up,
motivated,
motivated.
fired up,
Fired up,
dedicated.
dedicated.
So me and Superman had a fight.
Well, me and Superman had a fight.
I hit him in the head with some kryptonite.
I hit him in the head with some kryptonite.
I hit him so hard that I busted his brain.
I hit him so hard that I busted his brain.
And now I'm dead in Lois Lane.
And now I'm dead in Lois Lane.
A left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, hill.
A left, right, a left, right, a left, right, a left, hill.
Your left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, hill.
Your left, right, a left, right, a left, right, a left, hill.
1, 2, 3, 4, hey!
1,
Come on now,
2,
everybody now,
3,
clap your hands now.
4, hey!
One sounding better now.
2,
Don't stop.
3,
All right now.
4, hey! 1,
Are you ready
2,
to run along
3,
with me?
4, hey! 1,
Get yourselves
2,
motivated.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. And it's high, high, hey, the army's on its way. Down off the games on its run. For wherever we go, you'll always know that the army goes rolling along.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are.
Left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, hill.
Left, right, a left, right, a left, right, a left.
Your left, right, oh, left, right, oh, left, right.
There we go. Sorry about that. I'm your host, Mary Stanley, and bringing you a deeply reflective and important weekend. On Saturday, we made a historic milestone, the 250th birthday of the United States Army. 2.5 centuries ago, in June of 1775, the Continental Congress formed the Army, igniting the defense of a new nation and shaping the course of history. Today, across the country, communities are honoring this legacy with parades, ceremonies, and tributes. But also, as these things happen, we celebrate our nation faces pain and division. On the same day in Minnesota was shaken up by an imaginable tragedy, politically motivated shooting deaths of State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and the wounding of Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Good morning.
Good morning.
I thought we'd talk a little bit about the Army anniversary and about the tragic events that happened here in my state.
Yeah, what the heck is going on?
My phone rang off the hook all weekend because I was with our state representative, Tom Sexton,
Hmm.
for events in my hometown, making sure, that wasn't the guy that I was hanging out with.
Right.
But it's insane.
It is insane.
And it could have been so much worse because Senator John Hoffman's wife used herself to protect their daughter.
Hmm. Yeah.
And last I heard, our senator is still in surgery, in critical. We don't know if he's going to make it or not.
Hmm.
And that's the thing is these shock waves then, these attacks send shock waves, underscoring political tensions and urgent need for healing.
Yeah. That's always going to be the case, though.
Well, the interesting thing is we just had a big vote here in Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
and it was about illegals getting free health care. And so the Democrats are for it, the Republicans were against it. And these two were the only two that crossed party lines to vote it down.
Hmm. Sort of reminds you of the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah.
I've been reading a book called The Mystic Chords of Memory, selection of Lincoln's writings. And in it, he talks about that. And it's very similar. How history repeats itself is just mind-boggling. It's like we're in a time loop, but different circumstances. Know what I mean?
It is. If you look back at all this stuff over and over and over again, it's just, I went to a garage sale this weekend, and it happened to be a history teacher's garage sale.
Mm-hmm.
So I got some really cool books that were about the First World War,
Mm-hmm.
written right after the First World War, and
Mm.
some of Winston Churchill's books that he had out right after the Second War.
Hmm.
And the books is about what caused the start of World War One and what caused World War Two.
Mm-hmm.
And we never talk about, how these wars started. And I get a little bit of slack because when I read these books from when it happened before political propaganda, before, the victors wrote,
Yeah.
and before, everything gets marginalized. In a way, with what was going on in World War II, they kind of had it coming. They were poking the bear.
Yeah.
They were screwing with Germany 5 ways to Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
War is not nowadays with what's going on in Israel and Iraq and Iran and the Middle East. That's a completely different story. They're just boys that got bored and wanted to just piss each other off. I don't know a better way to describe it. It's just flexing egos.
Yeah, basically.
You got one country running its mouth, trashing another country, and they go back and forth like children in the schoolyard.
Yep.
And it reminds me of the joke that I always tell my husband about what's the difference between little boys and men. And it used to be the price of toys.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is kids' toys are now just as expensive as big boy toys.
Just about. You're not
But
wrong
that's
there.
like, we forget about Mussolini. We forget about all these people that they would play sides in the wars. And no matter what happens, I mean, we could end up with a war in Antarctica. We're gonna blame Russia,
Hmm.
and that's like now because we had two representatives that voted based on not their party but on their constituents, and what their constituents wanted. This is what happens.
Hmm.
They actually do their job.
Right. So you're always stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yep.
Hmm. Yeah.
Did you watch any of the military parade?
Yeah. I was at the VFW and they had it on, but they didn't have the sound on, so I couldn't hear anything.
Was it as bad as everyone says it was?
Who's saying it was bad? I'm not.
The
They're,
soldiers didn't walk in step properly. I've heard a lot of comments from veterans saying that it was basically like boot camp, learning how to march. Like the soldiers didn't want to be there, didn't want to do it, and didn't do their job. I didn't watch it. I'm just going off what I heard.
uh, be quite honest with you, about the only ones that I saw that were doing the route step. I mean, that's a long march.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, with the Civil War soldiers, the reenactors. I mean, you know, what the hey?
They're civilians.
Yeah, I watched. I saw the 101st. They were on step. I saw the 82nd. They were on step. Um, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I guess they're talking about the. I did see a couple of the units later after the 101st and the 82nd. I saw a couple guys out of step, but I saw them try to get back in step. And it's
Okay,
not hard to get out of step. You know that.
it's easy, especially on roads that aren't meant for that.
Yeah.
The ground vibrates. And then you start zoning out a little bit.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, my lieutenant always gave me the joke that I need to go to the PX. I need to go buy some rhythm because I ain't got none.
Exactly. But I didn't the
And it's even
the
harder to
old
march if you're not cadencing. That's the reason we cadence.
yeah.
So if we're silently marching, it is very hard to march in step.
Yeah, the old guard, the ones that guard the tomb,
Hmm.
um there was a detachment of them in, and man, they look sharp. I really, I thought. So, now I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Who's the oldest, Marine Corps or the Army?
The Army's older, but not by much.
Well, not according to the Marine Corps, but
Well, yeah,
I
no.
agree. I agree, but
Because it goes Army, Navy, then Marines,
mm-hmm.
then Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And
I knew the Air Force was youngest. We're the stepchildren of the government.
well, you're the one that technically aren't supposed to. And this is the funny part about it. People don't realize is that we're technically only allowed. It's supposed to have two branches of military.
Mm-hmm.
So the Marines are with the Navy and share a budget, and the Air
Mm-hmm.
Force is with the Army and share a budget. But the this is where the Marines get a little pissed off. Is that the Marines were actually formed in 1917. They were actually the 3rd Infantry Division of the U.S. Army, nicknamed the Marine Division, which turned
Mm-hmm.
into the Marines. So technically, the Marines are part of the Army first. Just saying.
Not according to the Marines. They say they were started in a tavern in Baltimore in 1775.
Could be true just for the fact that they were part of the Army and they decided they were better than the Army. The egos got in the way. They are jarheads.
And they are leathernecks.
Yeah.
You know how they got that name?
Yepers. So, and that's the fun part about, and that's, I get a little heat from civilians a lot when I make comments like, Chair Force instead of Air Force. We all have nicknames for each other in each branch.
Yep.
It's like the Air Force calls the Army the bullet catchers. We're sent on the ground to, flush out to where they can aim the bombs.
Yeah, you know what Marine stands for, right?
What's that?
Muscles are required, intelligence not expected.
Exactly.
And you know what Navy stands for, right?
What's the Navy?
Never again volunteer yourself.
Yeah. And I always, my husband gives me a lot of shit because I don't like water. I don't go swimming. We have a pool in our backyard, and I live in Minnesota. I've almost drowned as a kid a few times, so I have a fear
Mm-hmm.
of water.
Well, sure,
And so
yeah.
he's like, "Will you join the military?" I go, "Yeah." And if I wanted to play in water, I would have joined the Navy, or I would have joined the Coast Guard. I joined land for air in my world.
Exactly.
For a reason.
Mm. Yeah, my dad said, you want to go in? You want me to sign for you to go in? There's only two branches you're going to go in.
Yeah.
He said, it's either the Navy or the Air Force. He said, you ain't going in the Army, you ain't going in the Marines. He said, I was in the Army, and you won't like it, I'll guarantee it. I said, all right, I'll go in the Air Force. He said, you can wait another year and then go in whatever branch you want to. I said, no, I want to get in the fight. That was back whenever Vietnam was in.
In the heat of it.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, they say Vietnam was over in 73. Now, that's actually whenever they started downsizing, pulling troops out. But they brought some home, but they didn't bring them all home. It still went on until Saigon fell in April of 75.
I was gonna say I thought Vietnam ended in 75.
It did. But they I don't know why, but even the challenge coins that come out say, yeah, end of Vietnam, 1973. What? No, I don't think so. I was in the midst of it in '72. I was Operation Linebacker 1, Operation Linebacker 2. I was out of Udorn. I was out of Talkley and Udorn twice. But my home base was Homestead Air Force Base, Florida, the one that got blown off the map by Andrew.
So the reason why it officially ended in 73 is the US military officially withdrew combat troops following the Paris Peace Accords,
Yeah,
which
but they didn't pull them all out.
we were considered peacekeeping at the time or defense, not active war.
If somebody's shooting at you, what are you going to do?
It's like, the Middle East. We were in there for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Russia was in there for a long time too.
Yeah.
They got smart and got out.
Well, part of the reason they got out is they kept changing the rules of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
You don't change the rules of engagement in the middle of a war.
I'm sorry. No, you can't do that.
And that's what a lot happened over there is that, the rules of engagement kept changing. You couldn't
Mm-hmm.
fire. The original rule was you couldn't fire unless fired upon.
Right.
And then they decided to change it to we couldn't fire unless fired upon, and we had to verify that they were non-friendly. We couldn't just shoot. We had to make sure that they were, bad guys.
Well, how the heck do you tell?
Good question. Because anytime someone's shooting at you, we look at them as a bad guy. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Well, Vietnam was trying to be run by politics, sitting in the big chair back here in the office in the states. They weren't even there.
No. Anyone ever go out there?
Yeah, there was a couple of senators that went over there. I heard one senator. He was visiting. Yeah, he he asked the general that he was walking around with. He said, "I know we're here for a reason, but why are there so many foreigners?" Figure that one out.
Yeah.
He just fell off the wagon, or something like that. That is nuts. But takes all kinds, right?
It does. And did we really accomplish anything in Vietnam?
uh, well, we helped the North make Vietnam one. That's about it. I can't say yes or no, one way or the other. But the government needs to take care of its own.
Yeah. And we're still struggling on that.
Yep. You ask us to do it, we did it. Then you leave it, hang us out to dry. So what are we supposed to do? If we don't take care of each other, who's gonna take care of us? You know what I mean?
Right?
So I can understand why people get frustrated, but to go around shoot somebody, nah, no. They should have just shot him.
They brought him in. They caught him last night, this morning. And without incident, I guess he just gave up.
Hmm.
He was hiding in the woods,
Huh.
and they caught him with drone. What I don't get with it is they caught him not far from where the shootings were,
Huh.
in a woods.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Well, depends on what he was thinking. I mean, really, I mean, uh, was he? They gonna say he has mental problems, or are they using his all three names, or because you know, uh, assassins always use they always use the assassins uh, three names, not two. Like JFK's assassin was uh, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
Why didn't they just call him Lee Oswald or Harvey Oswald? No, they had to make a pronunciation as Lee Harvey Oswald. Lincoln's killer was John Wilkes Booth.
And then, like, Sirhan Roberts,
Right,
assassin was Sirhan.
right.
Just repeat his name. So you remember it. You remember the three names.
Hmm. So, you know, are, is he going to plead insanity or PTSD or what? Nobody knows.
And they
They had a
haven't officially charged him yet.
no. I guess they're still trying to get evidence on him. Anybody take any pictures or anything?
Well, they caught him on doorbell cams. And that's the other part I didn't quite understand is you have a guy in black, looked like police, but he had a mask on. It's like 2 in the morning. Why would you answer your door? Just saying.
Well, maybe Senator thought it was something important. I don't know. If it was that important, they should have called.
That's, yeah.
But who knows? Nobody knows the motives of people.
No, well, he's got a manifesto. He actually, when he went into hiding, or right before he did this, he sent his roommate a text.
Hmm.
And then they stopped and detained his wife, who he wasn't living with passports and guns in her car.
Hmm.
And apparently they own some big security company.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So he was pissed at him at the senator because they voted the vote down.
That's what they think, just because that happened Friday.
So he wanted to give free medical
Y-
to the
It's not,
illegals.
yeah, it's not making a lot of sense. That's what the
No.
original reports were, where they were saying just because that just happened, they were the only two that voted against party lines. But the guy that actually did the shooting was an appointee of Walt's few years ago.
Hmm.
And apparently he had a manifesto that was going after Democrats.
Well, that should have been a flag right there. Or didn't they know about it back then?
There's reports that people that they had reports of possible stuff happening. I know there were warnings in Minnesota before this happened not to go to the protests. So I think they thought something was going to happen at the protests.
Hmm.
We'll find out more today. He's scheduled to make his first appearance in court this afternoon.
Hmm. It's
And it's something to do, like, I guess apparently a few of the people that were his targets were like Waltz, Klobuchar, Omar, Ellison, a lot of pro-abortion people. So
hmm.
Minnesota is a big pro-abortion state.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's more questions than answers, but that's usually how it works.
Yep. That's how it goes. And if they
And
don't
then,
know the answer, they'll probably make one up.
yeah, that's about it.
Because that's what they do.
You got to fill the gaps in.
Yep. You ain't wrong there. But
And
what
then,
was it? Oh, go ahead.
did you hear about the DOD posting the flags that look like Russian flags for Flag Day?
No. What the heck?
So apparently, they posted two small horizontal rectangles of white, blue, and red, which perfectly match the Russians' flag colors, with no reference to Russia. It was two stripes, white and red, placed on a blue background with a gap between them. So the gap created a visual illusion of a third stripe, giving the impression of the Russian tricolor.
No, I didn't hear that. At least it didn't have a hammer and sickle on it.
Right? I don't know. I just,
Why do you think California has the bear?
Hey, could be worse. You could have the Minnesota state flag.
True.
That wasn't voted upon, wasn't nothing. It was a unilateral decision that we're still fighting.
Hmm.
There were some really cool flags that were presented to be done that were better than the one we got that they approved of.
Hmm.
Welcome to this great state of Minnesota.
Yep.
So, do you have to be a U.S. citizen to run for office?
Yes.
So, how does someone who comes to this country illegally run for office, win, and end up in Congress or Senate or the state?
Don't ask me.
Because that happened in Minnesota.
Well, then they ought to retake a look at the law. Don't you think?
I thought you had to be a legal citizen to be a political office.
Mm-hmm. And you have to live in the state for so long. Or if you're talking about state legislature, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, I guess it depends on the state bylaws. In Pennsylvania, you have to be you have to be living in the state in order to run, and you have to live in the county, the area that you're running in.
Correct. We've had a few of those not get kicked out because they bought fake houses or rented houses or whatever, but didn't live in them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Same with mayor, same with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite agree with law enforcement on that one.
Especially if, well, especially if you're state police, but you have to be willing. It's just like the military. You have to be willing to move whenever they tell you to move.
Right, but if you find a house in the neighboring town that's $100,000 cheaper that you can afford, you know,
Don't disqualify them
right,
because of that.
right.
No, I can understand that.
Especially when you're like in bigger cities, a lot of them you can't. A lot of law enforcement you don't make that much money. They're like soldiers; they make crap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you'd want to live in suburbs with kids compared to like a concrete city.
Exactly. The green grass,
Yes, let kids eat dirt.
which is fast uh, going into non-existence. At least in Pennsylvania, everywhere we look, man, farmland's disappearing, and residential housing is going up.
Yep,
5, 6, $700,000 homes.
that you can't afford to live in.
I can't afford it, but I know why they're doing it. people from Washington are moving up here. Baltimore, they're moving up here. Philadelphia, they're coming in. We're soon going to be a suburb of Philadelphia.
Wow. I'm sorry.
So am I.
So then you can't even afford to live there because you can't afford the property taxes.
Right. And I keep saying somebody better wake up and get their head out of their ass.
No, there's a big fight in my town because my town's very small. They want to keep it small,
Mm-hmm.
but we got to modernize to thrive.
Yeah.
Do we really?
It'll bring in new revenue. Bullshit.
We have but that means that what happens? Crime rate goes up.
Yeah. There's always a price to pay.
You don't know who your neighbors are. I mean, we're very fortunate to be, we're a small town in between two bigger cities.
Mm-hmm.
And the city next to us was one of the cities that was in a letter from immigration about sanctuary cities. And they host their little protests and their crap over there. And, you know, violence has gone up out there
Mm-hmm.
to quadruple what it used to be. We used to get, a big drug bust all the time just because we're the I-35 corridor.
Mm-hmm.
But now, about 6 months ago, we had some guy beat the crap out of his girlfriend, killed her, and threw her out of the car underneath the freeway. The other day, some guy got pissed and literally broke windows in a strip mall because he couldn't get the price he wanted for turning a video game in at a GameStop. And then went to Walmart next door and started breaking car windows there. And this kind of stuff never happens. I mean, we live in our community is we don't lock our doors. We know everybody. It's a town of 1,500 people. If you're a stranger, we know it instantly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sick, everybody knows it. Trust me, I learned that one. When I got sick at the beginning of the year, I missed 2 weeks, 2 weeks of church. I had my church calling me, asking if there was anything that they could do for me.
Mm-hmm.
We want to keep it that way. I want to be able to let the kids play outside without having to stand there and watch them. I mean, I have to watch my son because he walks away, but, kids be able to ride bike down the street without having to go with them.
Yeah.
No, it's like it was so weird with what happened with those senators because that area is a rich area. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
crime area.
Hmm. And now they're gonna try and pass legislation against the gun carrying law abiding citizens. And say anybody who carries a gun is wrong.
Right?
I don't think so.
Seeing he had an AR-15 and a handgun.
Hmm.
And the thing is his guns were legal because him and his wife own a security company. So he had all the proper permits because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, with the gun laws, Here's my thing with it. Is the fact is that 9 out of 10 times shootings happen because one, they're idiots and they're not, kids get a hold of guns. But
Hmm.
you hear about a 2-year-old or 3-year-old shooting themselves or someone else. I just have a hard time believing that they have the strength to do that. It's not easy to pull a trigger back on a gun. Most little kids can't even get a Nerf gun to work.
True.
So how are they pulling back a trigger of a gun? But two, why is it loaded? Why is it chambered? Even if it was loaded, there should never be a bullet in the chamber.
Exactly.
And you never hear about these kind of shootings and things, accidental shootings or in rural areas. Only time you do is purpose done or it's all inner cities. It's all a loaded gun in your purse and a kid gets a hold of it. And how many of them are actually registered? How many of them are legal? And you know, as a parent, with military training, and how are you going to get your kids out of harm's way and shoot the suspect at the same time? Just saying. Why would you carry a gun? It'd be more effective to carry mace. Spray them, get your kids out of the way.
And
Protect
then
your
shoot
kids.
him.
Yeah. But you're fumbling in your purse for your gun. In the meantime, your kids are what?
Targets.
Mm-hmm. Just saying.
That or else a handheld taser.
Yeah.
Now everybody's getting in on the act. Saw these flashlights that are now give out what 1,500 shocks, 1,500 something volts. Some it can knock a 250 pound man down,
Yeah.
which is good, and then just beat the crap out of him.
Yeah. Or run away.
Yeah,
But, your kids come for your first line should be always to protect your kids.
yeah.
Like the representative's wife did.
Yeah, there's just no rhyme or reason.
Not anymore.
No. So who
A lot of
knows?
things I just don't get. We have baseball bats at, at every entrance of our house on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband's like, why? And I go, because I can do more damage with a bat someone trying to get in my house, if they make it in my house, then I can fumbling for the weapon or a gun,
Mm-hmm.
or you getting a gun and you panicking and shooting me. You're more than likely to shoot yourself or someone else in your
Yep.
house than you do the actual shooter.
Get hit by friendly fire.
Mm-hmm. Just saying. And my kids know where they are. And they know where and then we have like our Google system is set up so that all they need to do is call help.
Hmm.
So that, if something ever happened, not that anything would ever would, but just in case.
I hear you. Yep.
My kids learn self-defense. They're learning it. We just there's a really nice boxing game for the Switch that my daughter plays. Learns how to box basically. And then we got her one of those punching bags.
How old is she?
10.
Oh, and your boy is younger,
He's 9,
9.
and he's one of those that he will defend himself if he needs to, but he's more to run.
Mm-hmm.
So Ariana's the freeze person. So it was more important for her. And we started it as self defense training in the sense for her it was exercise. Getting
Hmm.
her to do something physical. And an ulterior motive to it was learning how to throw the left to right, cross punches, things like that
Mm-hmm.
is really good therapy for your brain
Mm-hmm.
to increase the processing speed,
Hmm.
which increases your cognitive thinking, your reaction time, and helps speed up how your brain processes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good cardio exercise.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
And she enjoys it.
That's the big thing. As long as she's enjoying it.
She wants to get into karate, so we're going to sign her up this summer.
Cool.
I think it's taekwondo, but I'm not 100%.
Taekwondo's Korean martial art.
They do
Karate.
family classes,
Mm-hmm.
and they have experience. The instructor has actually been an instructor for like 50 years.
Hmm.
But he's had experience with special kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was out there several years ago to a out to Northwestern. I was out there for a oncology uh, conference. That was interesting.
So June is PTSD Awareness Month,
Yes.
and June 27th is PTSD Awareness Day.
Why?
I don't know.
Those who have PTSD don't need to be aware of it. They already are.
So actually, the reason it's in honor of the memory of Staff Sergeant Joe Beal, a National Guard service member who died by suicide after struggling with PTSD following 2 tours in Iraq. And the whole point is to reduce the number, bring awareness and the stigma of PTSD. Is what also when they made PTSD an actual disability in the military.
That's cool.
So there was an actual reason. Because the number is now, instead of 22, it's 23.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the few things that Joe Biden did. So back in, or was it Joe? As they really started pushing this whole PTSD awareness thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if only the government would actually do something about it.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd talk a little bit about it next Monday. And one of the things that I always found funny is a lot of these organizations raise money for PTSD awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have these great things to do for it. My favorite is watching the rucksack marches. Who? I don't get it.
Hey, what were we supposed to be talking? What did you want to talk about today?
Originally, it was going to be transition
Right.
and dealing with transition into service. And we'll talk about that next week. I figured with the shooting and all the stuff that happened over the weekend,
Yeah. No, I understand.
it's how to find purpose in transition and understanding. You go from on all the time to nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's leaves a void. That's for sure. And first, you're looking in all the wrong directions, wrong places, but eventually, I found my way. So we can talk about that again next week.
Perfect. So, as we run out of time, so join us next week and we will talk about transitions and PTSD and understanding the mental health that we go through. And remember, there's always someone to talk to. You just need to reach out.
Exactly.
So have a good day. Have a good night. We'll see you back here next Monday.
Sounds like a plan.